DC Universe has only just started, and the last thing it needs right now is a TV show that makes you feel underwhelmed and wanting more in all the wrong ways. Sadly, this is what Peacemaker Season 2 brought to the table. This show had everything going for it. An amazing Season 1, a new universe to world build in and expand these characters from a beloved season of television, and a director who cuts on most things he makes. Instead, we follow a multiversal plot which surely James Gunn should know it's too early for. We explore this other universe instead of our own, and don't actually spend enough time in that said universe to actually get enough from it for it to feel like we've explored that either. The season starts with just one episode, unlike the first season which started with 3. This episode starts with a recap retconning any inconsistencies with the show because of the universe being different from the DCEU now. This is a cute way to start off the season, with all the fans bitching on how they'll fix this universe switch, but I don't like the cast of characters they replaced the Justice League with. In the original we had the DCEU Justice League, with a cameo from Flash and Aquaman. Instead, they replaced it with the Justice Gang, and they should have just left it as those 3, but we also got Superman and Supergirl as well. We don't exactly know the timeline of events of this new universe, but using what we do know, the Suicide Squad took place in 2021. Peacemaker takes place exactly 5 months after that. Jumping forward, Superman takes place in 2025, and Season 2 of Peacemaker takes place a month after that. We learn that Superman became Superman 3 years ago, as well as Rick Flag Jr. died 3 years ago. So either A, Clark Kent wouldn't have become Superman yet, or B, he would have just became Superman and wouldn't be someone who would be able to be called up by Waller. He's sort of his own superhero doing his own thing anyway, and he'd especially be that when he just took up the mantle of Superman. Speaking of, why the hell would Supergirl show up? From what we know of her, which is basically nothing, she's primarily off-world. So now you're telling me in this hypothetical situation, Waller was able to call up the Justice Gang, Superman, and Supergirl. They should have just left it at Mr. Terrific, Hawkgirl, and Guy Gardner as the people who showed up. It makes it more believable and would make the world building more consistent with the timeline of events that have already been set up. The actual episode starts with Peacemaker chilling in his dad's bed because he lives there now, and I feel like now is a good time to mention how this season is so disconnected from the first season. Season 1 ends with Peacemaker going insane and seeing visions of his dad in his head, still living in his trailer and keeping the butterfly goth alive. None of these are brought up in this new season. The reason Peacemaker Season 1 works so well is when you start watching it, it takes place directly after the Suicide Squad. We meet back up with Chris after the events that led him into the hospital. We learn more about the consequences from Harcourt and Economos' actions of going against Waller in the Suicide Squad. Very minor characters in the film, but from here we can recognize those faces and learn more about their characters as the season goes on. And from there, they start expanding on the plot, meeting the rest of the cast and so on. But this season starts with no plot threads left from Season 1 and instead kicks off straight away with Peacemaker traveling into another dimension, seeing his dad alive in there, and then we cut into the intro. They mention once, way later in the show, how Peacemaker was having visions of his dad in a throwaway line and nothing more. This season throughout feels incredibly disjointed from the first and just follows a completely out of left field plot of a Nazi universe. The other plotline of Rick Flag Sr. trying to get revenge is at least connected to the first season, because in the first he continuously has visions of him feeling bad about killing Rick Flag Jr. Now, the intro sequence. It doesn't quite hit the same as the first, but it was a high bar to meet, and it's still very good all things considered. Personally though, I don't love the focus on Peacemaker and Harcourt's love story. The reason the first was so peak is it was just random as fuck. It doesn't need an underlining story within. Just give us a funny dance moves with a banger song that I can clap and dance along and sing along to. That's all I need. Now let's dive more into the timeline of events of this season. So the first season happened 3 years ago compared to the second. Yet apparently, not a single character has gained any character development or really done anything notable with their lives, except for a party boat, which we don't really know what happened on there. That's the only thing that happened in the past 3 years. For example, Harcourt is still upset at Adebayo for her actions at the end of Season 1 apparently.
He's mostly forgiving me for airing out Task Force X's dirty laundry on TV.
It's been 3 years, yet everyone's interacting as if the events of Season 1 just happened, and nothing's really changed since. Adebayo then explains how her and her missus have broken up, and we later learn how Peacemaker and Harcourt are arguing and are not on great speaking terms because of said party boat. Vigilante's kind of doing his own thing, and Economos is working for the government against Peacemaker, keeping an eye on him. It basically resets all of the character development from the end of Season 1 of them actually getting along and working as a team, and throws that out of the window to start afresh. We have one scene of the group at a party together in the next episode, and that's the only time we have the whole team together till the end of episode 7. The rest of the episode is just catching up with the characters. Harcourt isn't able to get a job, Peacemaker's trying to become something bigger but isn't recognizable still. He's trying to flirt with Harcourt, but something that happened on a party boat between the 2 seasons led them to being awkward and her defensive over it. Instead of showing the character development and progression between these characters, they choose to just throw in a "remember when this happened" kind of line. What happened to show don't tell. We then get the Argus subplot with Rick Flag Sr. Senior and Cyborg Girl, which later in the season they act like they've never really interacted much before and start flirting with one another, but they've known each other and worked with each other for 8 months at this point. We then see Harcourt's awesome action sequence of her fighting men in bars.
If you're gonna be sarcastic, you should really warn people so there's no confusion.
It's a lazy and uninteresting plot thread throughout that she just goes to bars and picks fights. They cut to it a couple times and later she explains how it's the only way she can feel something. So this badass woman who can stand up for herself and doesn't stand down from fights is picking fights with misogynistic men in bars to get a kick out of it and the thrill that it brings. That is as generic as a character writing can get. Economos is also confused on what to do regarding working against Peacemaker with Rick Flag Sr. and doesn't want to betray his friend's trust. But in this season, he's seen to be a bumbling idiot who's not loyal to his friends and more confused on what to do and says all the wrong things at all the wrong times. For example, in episode 6, when face to face with Peacemaker's dad, he just spills the beans on everything that happened. Yet, in the last episode of season 1, he was able to stand up against a butterfly and just lie to their face and act like he is one of them. In season 1, the impression I got from his character is that he just does not want to be there. He's way over his head, and the relatability he brings through his reactions to the chaos and his understandable fear to the ridiculous circumstances brought is what makes him funny. This season, he's made out to be a cartoon character with cartoon reactions to the situations. This cartoon character isn't realistic and takes you out more than brings you in. The episode ends with Peacemaker's doppelganger dying to a conveniently placed ceiling spike. Now, as a first episode back, this doesn't hook you as well as the first season, but season 1 had 3 episodes straight off the bat, to be fair, and I think this episode 1 compared to season 1's episode 1 does do a better job at intriguing you on what's going to happen next. Although the advantage of having 3 episodes definitely help get more of the story beats and character depth from the screen to your eyes to really get you hooked. I think that's what this season is missing. Waiting a week for each episode and each one not quite doing enough makes it more of a drag than an excited wait. So let's have a quick look at season 1's first 3 episodes that came out on the same day. First episode of season 1 catches you up to speed with the characters from the Suicide Squad and introduces the new cast of characters as well, similar to the second season. It's a bit of a slow start story-wise, but it gives you time for all the cast to be introduced and interact. And their interactions and questions are a lot better written towards jokes while keeping the narrative flowing. And when you hear that intro sequence for the first time, just cinema. Obviously, it's impossible to recreate the hit that the first time seeing that peak intro gives, but season 2 doesn't quite feel the same. Then the end of the episode is a one-on-one fight out of nowhere, where Peacemaker is just as confused as the audience on what the fuck is going on. This fight isn't fair either. Peacemaker gets the shit beat into him, but this gets you rooting for him. From what we've seen from this character, he is not a good guy. He killed Rick Flag Jr. and is misogynistic without realizing towards women. But this simple use of an unfair action sequence where he almost dies but comes out on top in an action-packed explosion, it's an easy way to make you start rooting for him. When he eventually wins in the dramatic explosive way he does, you're itching to learn what really is going on here. Luckily, you got 2 more episodes straight off the bat to watch, and those are where the show really starts cooking. Episode 2, you meet Vigilante all suited and booted, and he instantly becomes everyone's favorite character. He generally doesn't miss. The same can be said with season 2. He's still funny as fuck in that season, but the lack of screen time from his character is really felt. We also get the subplot of Peacemaker's father getting accused for Peacemaker's crimes. And then the third episode, absolute cinema, it's peak. The screen time for Vigilante helps a bunch for the laughs, from the way he easily shoots the entire family while humming, and the entire interrogation scene. It keeps you laughing while building on their characters and moving the plot along. But this is where the plot actually starts cooking as well. We get character development from Chris not wanting to kill innocent people anymore, and start connecting more with the other cast. And we actually start learning about the butterflies more as well. We actually see one. We are there with Vigilante and Peacemaker in where we do not know what's going on, and we learn with them. Then the episode ends, and you are just itching to see next week's episode. But season 2 already is at a disadvantage at having just 1 episode. But when you look at the first 3 episodes of season 2, it also doesn't hook you as well as season 1's 3 episodes do. Still, episode 2 starts with Harcourt just being a prick to a woman who is being concerned about her. If that's her character, just being a prick, then how the fuck are you meant to root for her? She's obviously going through stuff and is not exactly happy, but even in season 1, we see she feels compassion for Vigilante before they even really spoke to one another. Now in this season, everyone just becomes arseholes to everyone. We then meet Langston, who is just another cartoon character in the way he acts. First he has bird blindness, but as a throwaway joke, sure, that's okay. But he's not exactly good at his job. The first thing he does is catcall over the screen at Adebayo, call Economos a pussy for knowing what a Pokemon is, and says, and I quote, "I had 2 hot bitches sucking my dick," instead of knowing what a Pokemon is. Later he gives his crew comical nicknames like Titties and Ponyboy. He's a cartoon character, not a government operative. Later faced with a straight shot at Eagly, he can't understand how big it is due to his bird blindness, and instead of shooting in the middle of whatever he does see, he just stands there. Eagly remarkably takes out all of these trained personnel, but later in the season we can explain that away due to us learning how he's some sort of eagle god or some shit. That subplot we'll get back to. After 24 seconds straight of an eagle walking in slow motion, we get to the main gang partying, and Chris and Hardcore arguing because she's defensive and he's not got a great past. Then Chris goes back into the other universe. This is a theme throughout this season. Chris and Hardcore not being on the same page, and then Peacemaker being confused on whether to swap dimensions or not. It loves repeating itself. Episode 3 starts with a flashback to Hardcore and Rick Flag Jr. and how they used to be besties who also, smashed on the side. Obviously giving us an understanding into Hardcore's distance from Peacemaker, because he killed her bestie. But this just proves to me that they could have had enough source to just stay in our universe and expand on Rick Flag Sr. as the main antagonist, instead of putting him to the sideline for this other universe plotline. Speaking of this other universe plotline, this is where we spend this episode. And all my nitpicks about this multiverse plot aside, this episode isn't bad. The way we learn about the alternate characters and see Chris's reactions to everything is well acted and wrote. I especially like the action sequence that takes place with Chris fighting the Freedom Fighters without his suit and equipment, but this episode isn't the issue. It's the fact that the rest of the season doesn't have Chris in his Peacemaker outfit at all. He wears his alternate universe suit a few times, but never in an on-screen action sequence. And the episode ends with him going back to his world and Argus heading over to his house to raid it again. The season rehashes the same plot points over and over again. They just try to break into his house last episode, and then this episode's cliffhanger is, oh my god, they're gonna go do it again. We also meet Michael Rooker's third character in the DCU already. One was just a voiceover for a Nazi that took in G.I. Robot back in Creature Commandos, but he also played Savant in the Suicide Squad, and Michael Rooker was also promised by James Gunn that he would have a better and bigger role later down the line. But I suppose that is James Gunn's specialty, just making up whatever he wants to be canon at a whim. For example, he said that Murn's actor of season 1 was wasted on that, and he's definitely gonna reuse him for something bigger. And his brother is Weasel, G.I. Robot, Calendar Man, and Maxwell Lord. Anyways, Michael Rooker's third character is another caricature of an actual person. Way too cartoony in his actions, and his small subplot is so unnecessary to the actual plot it pisses me off. We see he almost shoots Eagly once, then fails. Use some magic voodoo shit around a fire to see where Eagly is, then go to hunt him down. Succeed, but oh no, that's the wrong bird. Eagly actually summoned a bunch of eagles in to peck him to death, because he's the primal eagle or some shit. Generally a waste of time. This season has too much going on and doesn't spend enough time on anything. This subplot isn't even that long, but it takes up enough time that could have been utilized in more important aspects that fall short due to the lack of time utilized in those plots. The rest of this and the next episode just consists of Peacemaker wanting to leave to the other dimension, but also doesn't want to. Thinking about it for a while, checking with Harcourt for if she likes him or not, thinking about leaving to the other dimension again and then doing so. If they wanted to focus on the other dimension so much, more focus should have been spent on that. That is the root of this season's issue, the misuse of time spent on important plot points. Not a single plot thread is expanded on enough to actually engage the viewer to make you feel satisfied enough with the actual story it's trying to tell. Keep in mind, each time you watch an episode, you have to wait a week for the next half an hour episode. So when he's just thinking about moving dimensions or not for half an hour, you have to wait a week to see him do the same thing again for another episode. The next episode is when the show actually starts cooking, but the difference is at this point it's been a month and a half since the show started, and it only now is getting to an actual engaging story in these episodes. And as a viewer, you know there's only 3 more episodes before the season finishes. It took this long for Vigilante to suit up as well, and I know this show isn't about him, but James Gunn sidelined one of the funniest characters he's ever written to instead focus on 2 plot lines that feel empty and an underlining love story with Harcourt, which, let's be real, we just want to just finish that up already. It's getting boring. It's way too repetitive. I do hate the face morph at the beginning of episode 6. It's so random and strange as an editing choice. I just don't like it. Anyways, episode 6 and 7 does actually start becoming very engaging with its plot, but it's too little too late. It feels underwhelming when at the end of episode 6 we see that it's a Nazi universe, but everyone knew this already by episode 3. And then in episode 7 we see all of our cast of characters get back to the universe safe and sound like nothing ever happened. The reason it feels this way as well is because the show's shorter runtime in these episodes, and focus being so lost on what its stories actually should be focusing on. At this point we're getting half an hour of plot each week, which itself was disjointed. Not spending enough time cooking on the other dimension to build that world out. Wasting half the season on if Peacemaker will go there or if he won't, instead of just getting there by episode 2 or 3 and spending more time there and expanding on that. Speaking of episode 6 and 7, we see that Peacemaker didn't realize that this was the Nazi universe. Not because of him being an ignorant guy, but instead by him just being a fucking moron. The Nazi symbol on the American flag already is something that would be hard to miss, but murals of Hitler, I get it's a joke, but a joke that's at the expense of the believability of the characters of the show isn't worth making. And this season is riddled with those, as I've mentioned throughout this video. But I also don't like where Adebayo's plot goes here. She's the perfect character to be thrusted into a Nazi universe, to really show how different this universe is, to really tell the viewers, yeah, no duh, this place shouldn't be lived in. But she easily escapes the Nazis by, get this, running away through a pool, like a normal person would, you know, run away through a pool of water when you're getting chased down. And then she hides in a house till it all blows over to not, you know, actually do anything interesting with her character. But not only that, she also has the audacity to say this shit.
Not so sure this Nazi world is as different from our own world as we wish it was.
I get the message it's trying to portray, but let's be honest, it is incredibly different in this universe. The entire world has been taken over by Nazis. We don't know what they do with people of color, but from the statement, it sounds like they have prison camps. Bitch, please, your universe is different. Shut the fuck up. And then the final episode is where it really misses the mark. By the way, if you made it this far, make sure you subscribe and like and all that shit. Anyways, the last episode had a whole season leading up to it. An hour-long therapy session for Peacemaker. It had some good character development moments within it, which were acted well, but between those moments was just montages and slow walks towards the camera. And at the end of the day, this is an action superhero TV show. And in this season of Peacemaker, our main character had 3 fights the entire season, which he actually fought back in. And the payoff of Hardcore's love story is as underwhelming as it could have been. We get a flashback to the boat and it's not anything you wouldn't expect. They partied on a boat, kissed, and then she felt like it wasn't right. Yeah, we know this already, because they implied this by telling us multiple times. Then the love story wraps up by Hardcore going, I actually do like you. And that's all they needed, baby. That's the resolution to Peacemaker's depression. I thought her whole speech in episode 6 was how he can't base his happiness on whether she likes him or not. And then we get a long ass montage of the gang getting back together and making the Checkmate agency and slow walking for 5 minutes. It felt like a cringy, ironic ending that would have been in a satire film. Not the best thing James Gunn ever made, which is a statement he made, by the way. And that's what makes a lot of fans feel underwhelmed. James Gunn didn't help himself. He hyped it up like it was the best thing ever. People then expected some crazy shit to happen. Maybe an Overman cameo. Maybe Blue Beetle. Maybe the Nazi brother Keith will come back for revenge. It's a bit early, but hey, it's something. Instead, we got nothing. James Gunn needs to stay off the internet and just let his projects come out and not yap so much about everything. And just when you think we got a happy ending of the gang getting back together, Rick Flag just kidnaps Peacemaker and chucks him into an alternate universe. This is setting up a season 3 of Peacemaker, I suppose, or maybe it'll continue in the Waller show, if that ever gets made, or maybe even Man of Tomorrow. But this isn't an exciting finale, because what got us here was so underwhelming. By the time we get to the cliffhanger, you're more pissed off that this is the only thing that happened this episode, is said cliffhanger, which we'll have to wait a few years to actually see what comes from it. Very cool, Mr. Gunn. And of course, the Earth X plotline is dropped in episode 7, so that whole plotline's underwhelming. At the end of that episode, Peacemaker gets arrested and goes to prison, and in this episode, he gets bailed out like it's nothing, so that went nowhere. And Rick Flag just becomes a supervillain in his actions, twirling his mustache and all. He is nothing like his character in Creature Commandos. The utter hatred towards Peacemaker I get, because he killed his son, obviously. But the fact he doesn't care that he's sending people into the other universes just to die, this isn't how we've seen his character at all. And the switch up from the Superman movie as well, it's even brought up in how he was against Lex and now he's arguing his case for him. The show was a sequel to the Superman film more than the first season, which is not a good thing. I love when movies and TV shows feel connected and the events from one project affect the other, but you feel the fact that James Gunn wrote and filmed Superman and season 2 of Peacemaker at the same time. We didn't need half the cast of Superman to come over. We didn't need the plot to be taken over by what happened in Superman. The focus is all over the place. They just breeze past important plot points like the creation of Checkmate and the team that are in it, which should be the main plot of the last episode if that's where they're ending the season. Instead, we got a montage with no dialogue. Mr. Gunn, I think you missed the mark on this one.